What's up, guys? MPFL angler Robert Robleski. On this video, I'm going to go ahead and describe on why I struggled on Logan Martin. And that was the very first stop of the 2024 season of the MPFL. So let's go back to pre-practice. And this is kind of where it all started. So the week prior to the cutoff, I went ahead and spent about 3 days down in Logan Martin. And I remember my very first day being there, the first couple of hours, I found a few stretches, and I ended up getting a pretty decent bag. I never weighed the fish, but in my head, looking at the size of the fish, I had roughly about 15 to 18 pounds, with a mix of largemouth and spots. And I was fishing shallow, power fishing. I was throwing a mag draft, and I was also throwing a jackhammer as well. And as you guys know, that you guys follow me, I throw a jackhammer pretty much everywhere in the United States. So those were my my go-to baits during practice for those 3 days that I went ahead and spent some time at Logan Martin before the cutoff. And I noticed that the water temperature was like about 48 to 53 degrees on just a bunch of various areas. I covered a lot of areas and stuff like that in those 3 days. So I felt pretty comfortable knowing that 20 days from now, an official day of practice, that pretty much everything is going to kind of stay the same. But it didn't. During those 20 days, we had a pretty cold snap. Everything froze over. Water temperature dipped down. Then we had this crazy warm rain that came in for about a week straight, right before our official day of practice. So what did that happen on day one of practice? It kind of basically dirtied everything. The water temperature kind of stayed the same. It was a little bit more on the colder side, but I did found a couple creeks, in this one specific creek, that the water temperature was a lot higher than the majority of the lake. And in those 3 days of practice, I did cover pretty much every inch creek you can think of on that lake. Maybe got stuck a few times, but that's another story. But anyways, yeah, I found this one creek that had a really good concentration of stained but not really dirty water, but the water temperature was really just a lot higher than it was anywhere else in the lake. And there was these specific islands that were off at the end of the creek, or the beginning of the creek going to the main lake, that I was just basically circling around, hitting every point. And I was throwing a LP38 and an LP35, or 50, no, LP38 and LP58. It's an arc rattle trap that we sell. And I'll go ahead and describe all my baits later on another video. But anyways, so that's kind of what I found. I got, like, on the last day of practice, I found these areas, and in like 10 minutes, I got a limit. It wasn't a big limit. It was like 10, maybe 12 pounds. Had a couple 3-pounders in the mix with that, but it was just like bam, bam, bam. And I'm like, so I told myself, I was like, okay, let me go ahead and start here in the mornings, see if I can bust out a limit, and then go throw a mag draft and jackhammer up in the back of docks and the back of ditches and stuff like that in really shallow water, because that's the pattern that I really thought in my head that was going to produce a really good bag and possibly either win this thing or get a really good check. And going into this event, I had really high expectations, and obviously it completely diminished. So day one of the event, we had like a 2.5 to 3 hour fog delay, and we didn't get out to the water till, I would say, almost like 9:30, 10 o'clock. And so they gave us an extra hour, which was great. So I didn't get to weigh in until about 4:30. So day one, I went to those areas and I got 3 fish right away. Nothing impressive, no size, just 3 dinks, but it happened within the 30 minutes. So really got into my head. 30 minutes later, I couldn't get bit again. So I'm like, okay, let's just milk these areas. So I went to one point of this island, back and forth and stuff like that, and I wasn't getting bit. It was like 2:30. I'm like, dude, I don't even have a limit, and I got 2 more hours to fish. So that's when I kind of panicked. So I went to like certain areas that I never even fished before and just dragged the shaky head and stuff like that. And I just couldn't get bit the rest of the day.
But that was, I mean, I described to you guys exactly what I was doing and what I was throwing. I did not throw once the mag draft. I did not once throw a jackhammer during day one, nor day two. Day two is basically the same scenario. I milked those areas. I lost track of time. I panicked, but I never went to the pattern that I knew would have done it, which was throwing a mag draft and a jackhammer. So since I was like completely out of the way of even getting a check, and I was way in the bottom of the pack, I just told myself, day three, I'm just gonna go with what I thought I originally wanted to do, and I should have done. So day three, obviously, I had a better day. I had a 5-fish limit that weighed almost 14 pounds. I had one dink that I had in the live well, and I missed an absolute giant. When I said giant, a giant bass. And that probably would have had set me up to maybe about 17, maybe 18 pounds. Would have been a mega bag in Logan Martin. But it is what it is. You know, I redeemed myself. I got mad at them, and it just kind of pisses me off that the pattern that I did during pre-practice, that I never really did during official practice, I just don't know why I did that. No, let's go back. So in official practice, I did throw the mag drop and jackhammer, and I caught some free fish, and which were good sized fish. But it's just crazy to me to think that I never, even on day one when I had those 3 fish, 30 minutes later I wasn't getting bit, and I knew in my head this wasn't a deal. It's time to move on. With all the boat traffic coming in, I had to go find an area that was kind of all to myself that felt like it wasn't getting picked apart, and I just didn't do that. And that's what I did day 3. I went to 2 areas that I've never even been before on that whole lake. You know, knock on wood. I said that I've been on every creek, every arm that you think of that lake during practice. Yeah, I drove by it, but it's not like I didn't fish it. I just checked it out with my eyes and, you know, marked spots and brush piles and so forth. But I just fished new water, areas that I felt like my gut feeling like this should hold fish. So, you know, that was a key, and I should just went ahead and did that. But let's go back on that day 3. So I did find a pattern. Even during official practice, I found the pattern, and I was talking with Will Harkins, who's my roommate, who ended up winning the event, and then Richard Key. And I was noticing that these fish were basically, when the sun was up, they were baking themselves on these boat ramps that were going down to the lake. Not the ones that would go down and it would stop, in a sense, because then there's no concrete, it's all sand after that. But the ones that had the concrete coming down. And all my fish basically came in those kind of stretches. So anytime I found that, I had a high percentage of catching a fish. Like the big one that I lost, that I thought that was probably 5+, came in that same area. Then when I went to turn around and I threw in that same spot, I caught a 4-pound spot. So I kind of figured out that pattern. Obviously it was too late, day 3, it's over. But it was pretty cool that I had already figured it out, but I effed up, man. And honestly, dude, like, it's a little bit embarrassing. A horrible finish. You know, I had really high expectations going into this event. But at the end of the day, I can't really let it all get to me. And I really held my composure pretty well, even at the house with all the guys at the house, and just all together. I really didn't let it get to me, but I was just kind of more shocked that I didn't do good. And I mean, it's got to change, because I mean, I'm wasting a lot of money. I'm wasting a lot of just time and effort, and, you know, people's money that went ahead and invested in me for this season, and I'm not producing. It is only one event. I did take a year off, granted, and, you know, I really didn't compete, but I can't really make
those excuses anymore. It's just, those excuses are bullshit to me. You know, I should have done better. And, you know, those are the things that, you know, you got to reflect on in hopes that you learn and not make those mistakes and repeat those things again. So I learned my lesson big time fishing this event. And at the end of the day, I got to let it get past me. I got to let it go. Act like it kind of never even happened, but learn from the shit that you dealt with and then move on, because the next event's Lake Hartwell, which is in a couple months. And I can tell you what, guys, I am so stoked for that event. I should be probably, I'm going to give myself a good 30 days before the cutoff to just really grind and practice. Spend about 2-3 days a week going up there. I live about 2 hours, an hour and a half, 2 hours, excuse me, from Tougaloo River, which is the boat ramp on Tougaloo River. And I launch out of there and I fish a lot of those areas. So I'll be spending a lot of time. It'll be in April and the fish will be on spawn mode. So it might be a little bit different come tournament time, which is like the second or third week of May. And I think those fish will be probably done spawning. There might be some post spawners, or like some fish that spawn at the very end. But I think that heavy spawn is going to be like all of April. But I could be wrong, you know, just like what happened to Logan Martin. I thought these islands out of this one creek in the main lake with the water temperature being higher than anywhere else in the lake would produce a lot of numbers of fish. Well, it didn't, and I screwed up. But that's the cool thing about going to pre-practice about these events. A lot of people don't like to pre-practice, but I like to pre-practice because I can kind of break down different sections of the lakes. Plus, I'm very familiar with Hartwell. I fished there for the last 3 years. And I've done very well and many times, you know, fishing there and stuff like that. So I think it's going to suit me well for this event, especially the pattern I'm going to do. And I'm not going to go ahead and tell you kind of what I'm going to be doing because, you know, it kind of gives hints to other anglers that are going to be competing, possibly doing that kind of same pattern. So I'll probably keep my mouth shut, just like I kind of kept my mouth shut about the pre-practice, about how good of these bags I was getting. But anyways, I'm just going to keep my mouth shut, like I said. So, but guys, thank you. I appreciate you guys listening and listen to me rat about why I struggled at Logan Martin. And guys, if you guys ever get a chance to fish Logan Martin, please do. Man, that place is badass. I really do like that lake. I sucked day 1 and day 2. Shit happens. But it's a really cool lake. You can do all kinds of crap there. You can fish offshore, forward-facing sonar if you're a power fisherman. You can do all kinds of things there. So that's what I love about that lake. So anyways, guys, thank you so much. I will be posting a video next week about all my tackle and everything and my setups that I use for that tournament and other different cool things and setups I like using here in the next future. So thank you guys again. Please subscribe, like, comment. If you guys got any questions, holler at me. Later.